Uh, Welcome to this extraordinary council meeting to consider a submission by the Corporate Scrutiny Committee in response to the Local Government Boundary Commission for England's electoral review of the council size. Before I ask you to sit and then rise again, you will all be aware of the sad loss of a colleague, Cindy Benton, who passed away recently, and her funeral took place today. I know that a number of you were there. Cindy was, I would probably have to say, a friend to many of us as members. She was a diligent community engagement officer who was of great assistance to me and my colleague in my ward. And I think it's only fitting before we sit that we just pause for a minute just to remember Cindy. Thank you, members. Thank you, members. Please do take your seats. Before I move to the agenda, I just want to personally thank Councillor Wells for chairing the last full council meeting, and hopefully there'll be no more absences from myself. But I just wanted on record to thank Councillor Wells for doing an excellent job. I have watched it back, so I can speak from experience of how well she chaired the meeting. As usual, this meeting is being webcast, so there's an opportunity to view it live or later on demand. In the unlikely event of an emergency, please be aware of the emergency exit and follow the instructions of the security staff who are present this evening. May I remind everyone to behave respectfully and appropriately at this evening's meeting. I would like us to have a productive debate, giving as many members as possible the opportunity to have their say. Please speak clearly, always use your microphone, and remember to switch off your microphone after speaking. I will keep us on track if I feel that we are losing focus. I hope this doesn't happen, but I will remind members that the guillotine will fall 3 hours. It's in the script. Will fall 3 hours after the start of the meeting. Please, could I also remind members to turn off your mobile phone or place them on mute and any other electronic equipment for the duration of the meeting. I've received apologies for absence from Councillors Culwick, Orrell and Councillor Jane Burton. Do members have any other apologies for absence to report? No, that's good. Members, please indicate whether you have any personal, prejudicial or disclosable pecuniary interests that you wish to declare this evening. No, that's good. So the next item is public participation, and we have one registered speaker this evening. And before we proceed with our speaker, I would like to remind everyone involved in the public participation rules that are set out in the Constitution. The Council standing orders say that in the case of an extraordinary meeting, public participants must only address the business on the agenda. In exercising their public participation rights, a member of the public is entitled to express views, positive or negative, about the performance of the council, but must not say anything which is defamatory or discriminatory, make any personal attack on an officer and/or member, or disclose any confidential or exempt information, including personal information. I will now call upon our Speaker, Gwen Swinburne, who would like to speak on agenda item number 4, the City of York Council Boundary Commission size submission. Ms Swinburne, as you know, you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, councillors. I regret citizens' exclusion from this vital first step of the Commission's process and your failure to agree on a common number of councillors for York moving forward. This draft Boundary Commission submission omits 3 critical issues. First, it ignores significant disparities in governance and representation between wealthy outer wards and disadvantaged central wards. Guildhall, like other inner wards, lacks parish councils, unlike York Outer, where parishes handle local tasks, community engagement and funding. This absence leaves Guildhall councillors, for example, solely responsible, significantly increasing their workload and leaving communities without additional voice or resources. Second, the draft's claim of York being 12th least deprived unitary obscures York Central's challenges. It is ranked 379th of 533 constituency for deprivation, compared to York Outer's 7th least deprived status. Guildhall's far more significant poverty, health disparities, and transient population drive relentless demands, with homelessness, crime, and antisocial behaviour burdens falling heavily on our councillors. Third, only 52% of Guildhall ward adults register to vote, versus roughly 90% in outer wards, effectively doubling our councillors' workload. Councillors serve all: students, international arrivals, transient, homeless, plus 9 million tourists and our many businesses, all uncounted in workload metrics, as only registered voters are counted. By including voter registration data in this submission, you would highlight this inequity, supporting more councillors for inner wards. Lord Mayor, the report wrongly focused on costs of additional councillors, but not the benefits. Outer wards may not need more, but inner wards certainly do. I support Labour's submission for more councillors, not that it makes any difference, of course, but Lord Mayor, the draft submission does contain several factual, grammatical and spelling errors, which I hope the Director of Governance will be able to correct ahead of submission. I hope my 3 suggestions will be added, but if not, may I be advised how I can submit them to the Commissioner? Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Swinburne. Your comments have been noted and will be taken into account when that matter is dealt with. That concludes the public participation session this evening. And I move on to item number 4 on the agenda, and I invite the Chair of the Corporate Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Fenton, to move the recommendations of the Council in relation to the City of York Council Boundary Commission size submission.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I'm happy to move approval of this report. I'd firstly like to thank members of the Task and Finish Group and officers with support from the Boundary Commission for their work in pulling this report together in a very short period of time. It's an impressive report, and whilst it wasn't possible to arrive at a consensus position, the report contains well-argued positions for the Boundary Commission to consider. A number of minor amendments were suggested at the Corporate Scrutiny Committee meeting held on Wednesday, the 1st of October, and these are reflected in this final version. So I would ask members to vote to approve this report for submission to the Boundary Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fenton. May I have a seconder for the recommendation, please? Councillor Merritt.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Council, I'm pleased to second the recommendations, including, as the somewhat reluctant chair of the Boundary Review Task and Finish Group, what you have in front of you. The Task and Finish Group met 4 times, and I'd like to express my appreciation to the other members of the Task Group, the Councillors Cole, Hollier, Stewart and Wan, and to the many officers who extremely ably supported our work, with a particular thanks to Julie Gallagher, who drafted the main part of the report in the light of our discussions in an incredibly short timescale, just after arriving at this authority. I'd also like to express our thanks to Mr. Tom Rutherford from the Local Government Boundary Commission, who attended all of our meetings and answered a very considerable range of questions about the process, about what a good submission would look like. And he supplied us with 5 best practice examples, which we examined at our second meeting, and on how the Commission would weight submissions and make its judgment. Plus also covering how this would evolve into the second and final stage of the process. So very much appreciate the help he gave us. What was very clear from those discussions was the need for us to produce a bespoke document, giving what we considered was the best council size for York and its residents and business and community needs, and to produce strong evidence to justify our recommendation. This has to cover 3 key areas. What is required for the good governance of the authority by members at the strategic level. It needs to cover how we operate effective scrutiny, holding the executive and the council to account, and covering the representation on outside bodies effectively too. And thirdly, the right representation for our electors, how many councillors we need in terms of the ability to count of councillors to cover all the needs of their communities, individual matters, community engagement, and other aspects of our local roles. We made clear that oversimplistic comparisons with other councils using number-based approaches was not encouraged by the Commission. Evidence justifying our recommendations against York-specific needs was essential. Hence, in the document you have in front of us, the justifications of information collated in the main report, including the summarised results from the councillors' workload survey. And can I thank everyone who responded to it. That was really helpful. And I think what it demonstrates, both in the numbers, and this was also demonstrated in the discussions at the task group, the very wide variation in individual workloads, including in our own wards, and something that was touched on by the public speaker earlier on in terms of the ward that I happen to represent. We were also given a very clear steer about the overall size, and that anything outside a range of 30 to 100 councillors would need an exceptional case for the Boundary Commission to give it any serious consideration. I think that sort of hopefully covers the base, what we need to focus on in the debate tonight around this submission, and I commend the report to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Merritt. Members, it was remiss of me not to welcome our new Head of Democratic Services, Julie Gallagher, to her first meeting. So welcome. I look forward to working with you as the Chair of Council for the next few months, but welcome to your role. And I know that it's a position that as members we've needed to have somebody in place, and my interactions with Julie already have been very positive, very informative. So thank you for the proposal and second. I now invite debate on the recommendations. Please would you indicate if you would like to speak? Yeah. So I think the first hand I saw it was Councillor Douglas and then Councillor Wan. So Councillor Douglas.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I first want to take this opportunity to thank everyone involved in this process and the work they've done in getting to this point. And this includes officers and members and those providing expert guidance and advice on this first stage of the boundary review process. I acknowledge the differing recommendations of each political group and also of our independent councillor. And we will hear tonight why we have arrived at different conclusions. And I welcome the fact that we can agree to disagree and can therefore leave the Local Government Boundary Commission to make its own determination based on the evidence we will all provide. The Commission's priorities are to make sure that each councillor represents a similar number of electors. The necessary work of the council in all its variety can be effectively carried out, and ensuring democratic accountability is upheld. We cannot forget in our assessment that the work a councillor does is not directly tied to the number of electors they represent. Citizens do not stop contacting their councillors if they are not electors. Councillors have differing responsibilities and indeed caseloads based on the ward they represent. Labour group members work incredibly hard for their wards, reflected in the survey responses completed on average monthly time commitments. Our councillors are not just working hard in their wards. Other elements include council committees with city and ward partners, with community groups, through York's membership of the two combined authorities and through the integrated care system and membership of York's Health and Care Partnership. What we are doing and who we work with has changed significantly in the past years. Some councillors have a great level of workload linked to the number of businesses in their wards. While this is not a consideration of the Commission in calculating number of electors, it's a responsibility many councillors, such as those in Guildhall and Micklegate, cannot ignore in the jobs they do. Growth in our population is planned for through our newly adopted local plan. It's only right that as our early brownfield sites are redeveloped across the city, that we reflect this in the representation those new electors entitled to. The Labour submission therefore suggests a council size of 53 councillors. The people of York through to 2031 need committed, accessible, high quality representation to make sure our city continues to develop and progress for the benefit of our residents. And having enough councillors to achieve this is a highly important part of that process. The Labour group will therefore be supporting the recommendations at paragraph 19 and the report as written. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Councillor Wong.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Tonight's decision is really quite a simple one. We're being asked to agree that this report should be submitted to the Boundary Commission. As we've heard, it's the product of months of dedicated work by councillors, officers and the Task and Finish group. The report sets out the evidence clearly and comprehensively. It explains how City of York Council operates and the responsibilities that our councillors have. It also captures the range of views on what the council size should be, and that's exactly what the Commission expects to see. From our point of view, that's the right approach. We have each had the opportunity to make our case. The evidence has been presented openly, and now it's for the Boundary Commission to assess the arguments and make an independent judgment on what number is right for York. It's important that we give the Commission a submission that reflects the city's governance and community realities, not one that's based on any particular political preference. The report is professional, it's well evidenced, and it's fair in setting out every group's position as well as Councillor Waters' position. Let's submit the report. Let's allow the Boundary Commission to do its job, to review the evidence, to weigh the arguments, and to decide what council size will best serve the people of York for years ahead. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wong. Councillor Rose.
Thank you. I'm astonished to learn anyone is only doing 3 hours of meeting prep per month and 4 hours of ward work, because what I see across all parties is a lot of very hard-working councillors with complex casework and multiple surgeries per month and lots of internal and external meeting prep and meetings. And resident needs have been growing and council capacity has been shrinking. And as Gwen said, workloads in York are higher in areas with more deprivation or complex needs, with less employment and worse health outcomes and lower life expectancy. More people obviously means more work, but less obviously is the fact that the lower the elector percentage, the more work there is for councillors. We even now have many born and bred Yorkies who have become transient, repeatedly forced to move by landlords, with fewer younger people owning houses or living solo. All residents are represented by us and create work for councillors. When we go into the next phase, we need to fight for fair representation of all residents, not just those with financial stability. But what's important in this phase is measuring ourselves against other similar local authorities and LGBTE principles. We have to follow national guidelines, which one submission clearly does not. Indeed, it also ignores the critical role of councillors in ensuring the local authority actually functions, and having so few councillors would easily cost the council millions of pounds per year. Even ignoring the cost of poor governance, higher elector ratios don't save money. For instance, North Yorkshire is basically the same cost per resident because their basic allowance is 47% more than ours to compensate for the extra work. The second submission of 41 is well over 4,100 electors per member. Of the 24 unitary authorities smaller than us, the closest ratio is only 3,100. So this puts us about 30% worse than the worst. The status quo and the third submission of 47 would still end up 17% worse than the worst, 28% worse than the average of those 24. And when you look at population instead of electors, we're a significant outlier. A city over 200,000 people with fewer than 50 councillors is virtually unheard of. Smaller cities with more councillors than us include Bath with 59, Stockton with 56, Telford, Reading, Blackburn, Southend, and Darlington has 50 councillors with half the population. In the other direction, Peterborough and Warrington are still smaller than our 2031 estimates and have 58 and 60 councillors respectively. In fact, only Portsmouth and Stoke are greater outliers than us, and both look likely to be abolished in unitary reorganisations. And when automatic registration comes in, or we finally get equal voting rights for residents, the population figures in this report are actually more accurate than this paper's elector numbers anyway. And all of that is not counting the complexity of our historic places, nor over 9 million visitors per year, as Gwen mentioned. We're already disproportionate with today's population, and by 2031, we are going to be in colossal trouble for the volume of work and elector and population ratios. It's easy leaflet and press baits to say we shouldn't increase numbers. I fully understand that, but we have to be sensible here for the future of our city. Ultimately, the LGBC will decide, and I support all of our submissions going to them for consideration jointly, unlike North Yorkshire, but we have too few councillors compared to every comparable unitary authority, let alone for such a complex place as York. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Rose. I'm looking around to see if anybody else would like to speak. I don't want to drag the meeting on. You'll be aware that I have given speakers more than the 3 minutes that's allowed. That's not setting the bar for the next council meeting. Just be aware that I will be a little bit more strict at the next council meeting. Councillor Fenton, do you wish to reply?
No, nothing to add, Lord Mayor.
Okay, so I'll now take a vote on the motion. If you wish to vote for the motion, please raise your hand now.
Yeah, thank you, members.
Thank you, members. Anybody wanting to vote against the motion, please raise your hand. And abstentions? Yeah. Yeah. The result of the motion is so 42 for, none against, 2 abstentions, and therefore the motion is carried. Thank you, everyone. That concludes this evening's extraordinary council meeting. I'm glad we didn't need to call on the guillotine. Do have a safe journey home, and we'll see you here next month. Thank you.